The
Okay, so
as well.
I would like to ask to Professor Nadra, okay, as a literature
Okay.
professor, do you mind sharing with us which part of the novel that you highlight to
Mm-hmm.
students the most?
Okay. Thank you for asking me these questions. When I teach my student, I usually highlight two parts. Okay, two parts of the story that I think contain moral value to be instilled in students. We know that the author begins the story by establishing the central conflict of four men struggling not to die as the indifference wave threatened to capsize their boat. So first, I will focus on the part where the captain says that he sees the lighthouse at Mosquito Inlet, and the correspondents urge to turn around and search the horizon for the lighthouse. And the other part is when they see a man on the shore waving at them, but didn't rescue them. But they still being optimistic and continue to ensure their safety in the boat. So these two parts shows the human impulse to latch onto glimmers of hope and optimism, even that hope takes an anxious eye to find. And I will emphasize the importance of having hope as human being can't live without hope. On difficult days, hope inspires us to reach for better and do more. It makes us happier, right? So, like what we have discussed in the previous poem, if you still remember, Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. She also
Yeah.
reminds the readers of the power of hope and how little it requires of people. So, whether we acknowledge it or not, hope has helped most of us go through the hardest time in our life. So second part is I will highlight the story's climax, which is when the author reveals that Billy has drowned. Okay, it says in the passage that in the lower water, face down lay the oiler, his forehead touched sand that was sometimes between each wave above the sea. So we can see here the situation is ironic. Okay, we know that the cook is overweight, the captain injured, and the correspondent is just a simple reporter. But why? Well, even though Billy is the strongest swimmer and the most capable seaman of all, at the end of the story, he was the one did not survive. So this death, Billy's death, illustrates that the story overall thematic concern about nature's indifference towards human. Even though Billy worked the hardest to row the boat, the universe does not reward him for his effort at all. So I really hope that these two parts will give positive impacts in my students' life.
Yeah. Indeed, I agree with you, Professor Nadra, that this novel highlights the positive values that should be emphasized to the students. So, well, we are having fun sharing about the novel, and it seems that we are getting close to the end of our time together. So, I think if you have maybe any last words to tell to the audience, how about we start with Dr. Ratna? Or Professor Nadra, or our movie director, Miss Liping, or our actress, Miss Shang Nan. Or maybe the audience, do you have anything to ask to our guest today?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to talk on two two objects that are related to symbolism. Is that fine?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
Sure, Doctor.
basically, yeah,
Sure.
thank you. So basically, if you see here, I find that these two objects are related to symbolism. Like number one is the boat, and number two is the cigars. Okay, so the boat, if you see here, it's to which the man had to cling to survive the seas. Basically, this symbolizes human life hopping along among the universe uncertainties. So I could relate this to the current situation, like we are going through the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so our hope is the vaccine, of course. So the same
Yes.
concept is applied here. So the boat, which is no larger than a bathtub and seems even smaller against the vastness of the ocean. So the boat is not even a kind of boat which you could see in the movies or what. It's just a small lifeboat. Okay, so the boat is insignificant and always in danger of capsizing. So much as we as humans are insignificant and frail in the context of the world around us. Okay, so the phrase that the boat is characterized as open supports the interpretation that the boat is actually an unprotected object. So thus, this results to open to suffering the unpredictable turns of fortune that are quite unavoidable in life. Okay, so for the men, being in the open boat becomes the reality of their lives. So, and they realize from their experience that being on the boat, how little control that they have over where they can go and what they can do. So through the boat, Crane implies that life is not something that we can actually take control over. So, but rather life is what we must hang on to and not to give up as we pave our way in the world. So what basically it means here is, let's say if you wake up today, it's not going to say that you're going to wake up tomorrow. So you have no control over what is happening the day after tomorrow or even for the next second. So this is a very good lesson which I would take into consideration. So the cigars here, I would like to talk about the cigars. This is quite interesting. So the 4 wet cigars and 4 dry cigars, they serve as a complex symbol of hope for spiritual redemption, okay, and as the extreme loss of that redemption. So when the correspondent actually finds the cigars in his pockets, Crane makes it clear that there are 2 interpretations of the man's circumstances. So first, like the 4 sodden cigars, which means the cigars had been soaked, the 4 men are physically and spiritually soaked by the heavy, demoralizing forces of nature. So due to the nature, okay, so they are quite broken and they feel useless. So second, like 4 dry cigars hidden deep inside the correspondent's pocket, there is something inside the man that remains untouched by the cold. Okay, so drenching miserably that the sea contributes to. So at the moment, when the correspondent digs through his pocket, the men are likely to see themselves optimistically as the 4 dry cigars because their cooperation and hard work has seemingly put them on a track to defeat nature. So end of the story, the men's confidence is not intact. They feel misery, not triumph, okay? So the wet cigars are more appropriately illustrates the tragedy of the men's spirits. So basically, what we could see here is from the story of the cigar is teamwork is very important, especially in a, if you're working in a team, it doesn't matter what kind of tasks that you're doing. So this kind of teamwork is needs to be implemented and need to be taken seriously. So in order for you to achieve a certain goal. So that's my opinion based on these 2 symbolisms. So that's all from me.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Dr. Ratna. And can I share my thought about the theme?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, since many other lecturers ask me why do I choose this novel to teach my students. So I think the main reason why I choose this novel to my student is because first, the story is based on the real life experience, and one of the shipwreck survivor was the author. So it is quite interesting. To me, a real life story is inspiring, and it's involved real events, okay, people and location. And other than that, the theme, because I think the theme of the stories is suitable for any level of age. Okay, it is suitable to be taught in school, even in school. Okay, first, the central theme of the story, which is man versus nature, can inspire students to learn how to remain vigilant and united against the violence of nature to survive. I can also relate this to what happened to the world nowadays. I can relate this to the pandemic that hit us. It is nature too, right? So we know that every year the number of people being infected and dying increase every day. Okay, some people losing job, and then they are facing with mental health and whatsoever. So by learning about how important, how to deal with nature, at least the students will be able to survive. Okay, they will never give up. Okay, even though they follow the SOP, but still being infected, there's no reason to give up. Okay, we keep on doing whatever best for us. And second thing is the solidarity. Okay, the theme of the story is solidarity. It is also important to instill this value in students to build their mutual care and concern for justice. Okay, If you can see, one of the passages shows that the four men recognize their individual survival depends upon a mutual agreement to support each other. Okay, you know that as the saying goes, no man is an island. You know, no one is truly self-sufficient. We need to rely. No matter how strong you are, we need to rely on others in order to thrive in this world. So it shows that solidarity is what enables them to maintain sanity, support each other, and cooperate. And finally, what makes this story interesting is that I like the shifting moods throughout the story. Okay, if you read the story, the mood on the boat shifts several times depending on the condition of the men find themselves in. You know, they begin in despair, but become cheery when they believe their rescue is imminent. So then the mood dips into bitterness with the realization that rescue isn't coming. So this is make the story interesting. The shifting mood capture how elements of nature dictate the man's emotion. Okay, this motif also speaks to the mutual understanding the men share. So I think these shifting moods are related to the dramatic irony where the author reveals that contrary to the man's hope, there is no life-saving station for 20 miles in either direction. So the reader understands that the characters is more danger than they recognize themselves. So I really hope that these themes will help my students to reach a new understanding of some aspect of the human condition. So what about the other?